throug.
So the first question would be best way to find a decent hostel.
I'd suggest use Hostel World. You can find good ratings and good reviews, but never book your hostel directly through them because they're a giant corporation and they take money off the hostels. Do that for the first hostel you go to. You're always bound to meet new people, new travelers, and just ask them where they've been, where they'd stayed, and what they'd recommend. Then you're going to get real recommendations from real people, and generally from within the last few weeks. So I'd always recommend just trying to meet people and make friends, and they'll hit you up. TripAdvisor, Booking.com, Hostel World, they all have ratings, 9.1, they have reviews, that kind of stuff. So if you have a look through that, find the hostel that really resonates with you the most, pick what you like, and then from there, go over there, book your night in a hostel there, and then you make your first friends, and then you can figure out your next destinations and next hostels afterwards.
Most dangerous ways to travel, and if any incidents happened to you in the past.
Most dangerous way to travel is to not travel at all. As for incidents, look, I've had so much weird stuff happen to me in the past. I lived in London in the United Kingdom for 2.5 years. The entire time was in a hostel. About a 3-month period in that hostel, we weren't far away from a mental asylum, and when people were getting released from the mental asylum and the hospital, they were recommended to come to our hostel. One guy in particular, he came in and wanted a room. We gave it to him, and through the night he just flipped out, like he just switched into his crazy stage again. So he went down to the kitchen and he stole a kitchen knife and he started running around the hostel at like 3 o'clock in the morning, threatening to stab people. Came into our hostel, he's putting knives up against us and chasing us around. We had to call the police. By the time the police come, the man had disappeared. 20 minutes later, we found him. So he'd essentially gone from the ground floor, gone up to the second floor and climbed out the window, and then climbed from the ground floor to the second floor, and from there all the way to the top of the building on the outside, just scaffolded his way up there. We ended up having to get the ambulance, the fire brigade, the police were there. Eventually he came down, we had him in like the straitjackets, and it was just the most insane experience.
How to manage your budget during long trips?
Well, it's going to be different from person to person and depending on what country you're going to. Say if you're traveling through Europe, set yourself a limit outside accommodation and actual transport of 20 euros per day. Even less if you want to be on a budget. You're going to really be able to stick to your budget. Otherwise, you can find things like Workaway, subscribe to that, and it's like $50 a year. Then you can find places that'll let you do 3 to 4 hours work for them a day, and they generally give you free food and free accommodation.
But is it hard to find this kind of places?
No, it's
so easy. Is it?
It's so easy. The website is Workaway. It's fantastic. Otherwise, if you stay in hostels, I said earlier, you've got like Airbnb, Hostel World, stuff like that. You can actually volunteer there as well. So you might have to do a few hours cleaning every day, work on reception if it's a party hostel, pour beers or take people on a pub crawl, and then you get free accommodation and free food. I've been spending 10 to 20 euros a day. Sometimes I obviously go out, buy bottles of wine and shit like that. But that's just how it is. You got to have a bit of fun with it. You can't really hold yourself to it too much. If you focus too much on your budget, you're going to miss out on way much stuff. So if you want to find something good, every good story starts with a yes. So.
Make a scared face. But to survive in forest alone if you haven't got any equipment.
Well, the first thing you're going to need is a lighter because you're going to need a fire. And you're going to need a knife as well, so that way you can either dig holes, you can build shelters, but once you've got a fire you're going to be pretty well set. It's by far the most important thing, and it also helps keep the animals away. Typically if you do love extreme traveling, you're going to be prepared for whatever happens anyway. You'll have a tent so you can pitch that. If you don't, you can cut down some trees and use the leaves to keep the shelter there, but I only recommend doing that for a couple of days or a couple of nights. Alternatively, for really good shelter, if you find a big enough tree, there's always going to be a hollowed out section inside. Just jump in there, you can sleep in there, have a fire out the front, it'll keep the bugs away, it'll keep the other animals away. For water, you always want to be near a stream or just have a look for big leaves. If it rains, you can always just catch water off them. But I always recommend, even if you're in the cities, always travel with a litre of water on you. That way you don't have any troubles.
Best ways to travel and the most weird people you met in your life.
Just book a one-way flight, book your first hostel or your first B&B, wherever you want to stay. Just book it and then go there and then meet people and either just make friends, join a group, or get someone's best recommendation on where to go. You're going to see a lot more hidden gems that way. I've met some really weird people. Sounds better than getting stuck in Australia.
Most important things each traveler must have in a bag: a pot of flour.
Number one, a little bit of rope or a little bit of string is super important and helpful.
Just to hang someone on a tree.
The other two things, you need a lighter that does work and a lighter that's broken. The lighter that does work, you need that for smoking, you need that for lighting fires, and it's just handy to have. The lighter that doesn't work is a really good way to meet people, and it's a really good way to pick up girls. If you're at a bar in a country that you're not familiar with, you just have to go to the smoking area and go up to people that are smoking, go, oh, my lighter's stopped working, can I borrow yours? Money comes and money goes. You can find ways to travel without it. I got a mate who I met literally like a week ago, moved from the most northeast part of Norway all the way to Vilnius hitchhiking, 3,700 kilometers. He only spent 50 euros. If you can make it that far on 50 bucks, money's not really that important.
Yeah, but you can be traveling for half a year probably to get a distance. So a country you would not ever want to come back, and why?
World is a mirror. You get what you project, and I just felt like other places I've been, Europe, South America, Southeast Asia, places really bring the best out of you. Whilst I was in Canada, I just felt like the worst part of me came out. I got really sick of the drug culture there. 2016, the city of Vancouver, they declared a citywide pandemic, just like now with COVID. And it was basically on the opium pandemic. That was 4 years ago. To this day, it is even worse than what it was back then. The government actually pays the police to to put all the drug overdoses and drug deaths. They pay them to sweep it under the carpet. So Canada, it's like a face. Once you actually go there and you dig under it, you can literally go to a street called East Hastings, which is in the main part of the city, and you're going to see tens of thousands of homeless people all just shooting up and just getting really bloody like, and the cops walk straight past them. It's not a nice society, very nice to look at, but behind closed doors, one of the roughest places I've ever been, and you meet some really cooked people there. Because Canada has such extreme winters, places like Alberta, New Brunswick, places like that, they literally get like 6 months of snow a year, 6 to 8 months of snow a year, which means that most of the people can only work for 2 to 3 months a year. Which really does make it hard for them in the winter. So what they found years and years ago, a lot of Canadians that were homeless because of the job market, the minimum wage is so bad there, that people were literally dying in the winter just because it was so cold. By the time summer came and all the snow had melted, they were finding hundreds of dead bodies on the street. So what the government did to try and help the homeless people, they gave them all free transport to Vancouver because Vancouver's warm. They figured they'd stop dying. So rather than actually help them, they just sent them to Vancouver to live a longer and more miserable life. And now there's literally like the entire population of homeless people in Canada is all in Vancouver, and the government doesn't seem to do anything to help. The big issue now in Canada is fentanyl. Most people have probably heard it. They're using fentanyl to put in their heroin, cocaine, all the really bad drugs, and people that are just out there for a good time, or homeless people, they take one shot, one hit, and they die, which is absolutely terrible. But to really accentuate how big the problem is, when COVID first struck, all the homeless people were just defecating in the streets. You couldn't walk more than a metre without having to step away from human feces. And this is in Vancouver city centre, one of the most beautiful places in the world. So what the government did to try and help out, they gave them a bunch of portaloos, just put them on the streets. The first day that the portaloos were out there, they found one boy overdosed on heroin, dead in the portaloo, and not even 50 meters away, they found an abandoned baby dead in a public toilet.
Thank you very much for watching our video, guys. Please put like, dislike, and comment below if you'd like to know about any other country or solo traveling. And I'm gonna see you next week. Mwah!